Hello guys, and welcome to this hands-on session on manipulating your data. So just taking you through some of the examples that we've just seen. So here on the 99 underscore libs folder, I just got my retail underscore purchases data set, so the 60,000 customer transactions. So you can look at those there. And then I've got, a customer key, a basket key, and the sum of spend. So something that I worked out earlier as well. Okay, so yeah, just take a minute to familiarize yourself with that. It's pretty much the same example that we've been using in numerous occasions during this lecture. I've got the C class underscore key variable, which is basically just say an attribute or a variable that describes each customer. So C class standing for customer class. Okay, so yeah, just take your time and go through that. But what I'm doing is I'm just running this to make sure that it's those data sets are available. Okay. So if we just start off with a new program and start off with the keep and the drop example. So I'm just going to write out the code that creates this new variable, this new underscore price variable, starting off with the prod underscore data lines dataset, which you've encountered already in a previous lecture. I'll print it out as well to make sure that all went well. And now I'm going to create products underscore new dataset. So I'll set products underscore new, and then now I'll just use a drop statement to drop the price variable, which means that I'll only keep the new underscore price variable. So I print this out to make sure that I got what I'm looking for. I can enhance this with a title, so using drop. Okay. Now, let's do exactly the same thing. So data products underscore new 3. So reading the products underscore new data set. But now let's use a keep statement, where we basically say, I want to keep the category variable, I want to keep the product underscore name variable, and I want to keep the new underscore price variable. We then run, or we use the run statement, and we print this out as well. So print data equals products underscore 3. Let me just document this. So using keep, run statement, and let's run this. So there you go, guys. Up there, so the first data set is the original data set that has both the price and the new underscore price variable, which results from applying a function to the price variable. Using drop or keep, you see you get exactly the same thing. So it's really just two handy options. So for example, if you've got lots of variables in the data set, you might just want to use a drop rather than a keep in listing all those out. So now, a new program around transpose. This is, like I mentioned in the previous lecture, it's really a useful tool to use, and really useful data manipulation to know and to understand. Okay, so let's use read in some data. So in this case, customer underscore visits. We'll use the input statement because we'll be using a data lines to actually read in this data. So I'll just copy and paste that. So notice on here that you have more than one observations per data set, or per customer. So you've got 2 observations for John, 2 for Mary, 2 for Anne. And now what we want to do is we just want to have one row or one observation for each of those customers, okay, in a data set. So we need to basically transpose the data set, okay, so that we want to go from 2 observations per customer to just 1. Okay, so in order to do this, we need to sort the data set by the customer variable. Remember the discussion on the proc transpose. Okay. Yep. So basically, just highlighting you the variables that I want to transpose. So once this is sorted, you basically can create your transpose dataset by using proc transpose. And the way you do that is you just go proc transpose data equals your input data, and then you need an out statement, and I'm just going to call the output dataset t underscore customer underscore visits, t for transposed. Okay, I'm going to drop a couple of variables. They're automatic variables that SAS generates. We won't go into an awful lot of detail, so I'm just going to drop the underscore name underscore variable, and I'm going to rename the call1 variable to store. Okay, because basically SAS calls this column call1, and I want to actually call it store1, and call2 I want to rename it to store2 basically. Note that I could rename those whatever I wanted. Okay, I then use the by statement, hence the previous sort, and then the variable that we want to put into the dataset is the actual spend variable. Okay, so I need to use the var statement. I then use proc print. I'll print out this dataset to make sure they all got read sort of properly. And let's just document this a bit. So title ds pre-transposed, and here ds, so dataset post transpose. Okay, so you just go run, and then if you just run this code, you will be able to follow along the manipulation that's taking place. So there you go. The pre-transposed dataset, like I mentioned, had 2 observations for each customer, and except for Steve, of course, and then the post-transposed has just 1 row, but with 2 columns for each customer. Okay, so it's really important that you understand this. You could go the other way around as well, but it's really important that you understand this. Okay, so now let me just take you through a set example using the set statement. So I'm going to create a new data set called customer visits underscore part 2, and this will be coming in from reading some data lines. I'm just going to copy those. It's a lot easier. So I'll input customer store spend, and then just paste some other observations that I have for other stores, so not just store 1 and 2, but also using store 3 and store 4. So basically I'll create a new data set called customer underscore visits underscore all, where I'll be reading in the customer visits on stores 1 and 2, and then the customer visits part 2 on stores 3 and 4. Notice that they will both have the same observations. Okay, so this means there won't be any sort of missing values on the different because of different variables basically. So let me just document this. So combining data sets with set, and I want to print out the customer visits all data sets. I'll run this, and what you'll see is that you have a larger data set, which is basically consisting of the 2 original data sets being stacked up together. Okay, so yeah, it's really important that you bear this in mind. If you now look at the Steve variable, you see that Steve has got stores 3 and 4 as well. Okay, so he's got some observations for store 1, store 3, and store 4. Just important that you see that you're keeping exactly the same observations. Now if we go through a merge example, I'm just going to prep the data previously, so I'm going to call this program merge data prep. Okay, it's just really preparing some of the data for merge, but obviously my objective here is that you guys actually focus on the merge bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna basically transpose this customer visits data set so that I also have just one row per customer for stores 3 and 4. And I'm just going to change that store 3, store 4, okay, so calling it T customer visits part 2 data set. So I'll run that, and there you go. Now I've got pretty much the same as the previous or the earlier data set, where I have one observation per customer. So now what I want to do is I want to merge this data set with the other one, with the previous one, so that I get one row per customer and I get 4 columns, one for each of the stores. So I'll create a new program called merge. So it's a merge example. And what I'll do is I'll start off by sorting both my data sets by the customer variable. Okay, remember the previous discussion on merge, they both need to be sorted by the customer variable. So I'll do that. So here I've got transpose customer visits and transpose customer visits part 2. So now I'm going to create a new data set called all stores, which is basically the result of joining or merging the previous 2 data sets. So I'll go and do merge T underscore customer underscore visits, create this automatic variable that specifies when an observation belongs to this incoming data set. I'll do the same for the second data set. So and close off my statement. I'll then need to use a by statement because I want to merge by the customer ID, and I want to merge customers that are that belong to both data sets, i.e. an inner join. So I'll do if A and B. I'll hit run, and I've got basically my data set closed off. So if I do then proc print on all stores and I run this, you'll see that you get results in which you have basically 4 columns, one corresponding for each of the stores. Notice that Steve doesn't have an observation for store number 2 as you'd expect, because he didn't have a figure for that. Now moving on with our examples, our sort of last one will be proc append. So remember, this is a useful alternative to the set statement if you do not want to read in both data sets. So in this case, I'm just going to create a new data set called customer visits underscore append, and this is going to be I'll start off with the set statement with the previous data set. So I'll just go T customer visits, run this to prepare this, and this gives me my data set before the append. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll run proc append using as the base data set the customer visits append data set, and then using as the second data set, so that I'll be using for the append the customer visits part 2 data set. So doing a similar operation to what we did with the set statement, but here importantly understand the concept of the base data set and of the appended data set. I'll use the force option to make sure that if there's different variables, they still get used and added there. And now I'll just do a proc print to customer visits append after the append actually took place. Okay, so as you can see, you get you've got the data set before the append, and after the append you've got 2 data sets stacked up on top of one another. So that's pretty much it for this lecture, and I'll see you in the next lecture, guys. Thank you.